Everyone, welcome to another episode of Founder Wisdom Podcast. Today we have Angela Murlooney with us. She is CEO and founder of Unleashing Influence. Angela, welcome. Can you give us a brief introduction?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Charles.
Pleasure.
So I have ended up at Unleashing Influence based on a journey after losing my career as a dentist.
Yeah.
I had built an amazing brand in my dental industry, achieved everything that I wanted, and then I got injured. And so I spent the last few years really trying to figure out who I was supposed to be without a drill in my hand, because I thought that was my whole destiny. And I built a brand around my professional dance background. I built a brand around being a dental business coach. And then I built Unleashing Influence, which was to help people with their social media and build their personal brand on LinkedIn. It's been quite a journey. And in January of 2021, so just over a year and a half ago, I ended up moving down to Nicaragua from Calgary because I decided I didn't want to see snowflakes anymore. And when I arrived here, I realized how much of a mess I had made of my life because I was living in paradise.
Okay.
And I was working over 100 hours a week, and I was stuck in my office looking at white walls and realized there had to be more to life. And that was part of the reason that I had moved to a tropical country, was to kind of shift things in myself. So I started divesting, sold off all my companies, except for what specifically I do in Unleashing Influence. And now this is what I do day in and day out, is help people with their personal brands so that they can take their knowledge, pivot to what they want to do, and build a business around that.
Super interesting. You forgot to mention the dance inside that. So tell us about the Unleash Dance Company. You're pretty creative, it seems. So what about that one?
Sure. So it's funny because when I lost my dental career, people thought I had lost my mind and ran away to join the circus because I built my dance company. But I had danced professionally from the day that I graduated dental school. So I had these two careers in parallel from the minute I left the university. So it wasn't this weird thing, but I competed in ballroom dance because I was ranked second in Canada as a professional. I competed in salsa, was second in Canada
Wow.
as a salsa soloist, as a professional as well. So I had lots of different things that were going on when I was a dentist. And it was just kind of like this secret life. So by day I was a dentist, and by night I was a professional dancer.
Is it fair to say that you're this fairly ambitious person? And where would that ambition come from?
I think it came from growing up in a household where I felt like I could never do things right.
Okay.
And so I was always trying to be perfect because the rules were this way one day, and then the next day, if I did it that way, then that was wrong. And now these were the new rules. And so I kind of gamified everything in my life to try and make sense of my world and create order. And that's permeated into academics when I was a kid. Like, I wanted to be top of my school. And when I graduated high school, I was. I wanted to be the best dancer I could be. I put my heart and soul into competition to be able to achieve that as well. So there was always this drive to like figure out the rules and win at the game that was being played.
So I learned about gamification by playing World of Warcraft and Call of Duty as a young man, and I became like top of the game in both of these respective games. Where did you learn about gamifications, and what are examples of how you gamify your life and your business?
So I don't think I really learned about gamification. It was just my way of thinking about the world became, if I figure out the rules, play by the rules, then I can get a reward. And university was set up like that. As a dentist, if you put in the time, you got the scholarships. You didn't have to pay so much for school. It was better than working as a waitress. So there was always reward if you put in the right inputs in the right direction with the algorithm of life to try and figure out how to actually bend the rules to be able to get to where you wanted to get to. So that was just the way that I naturally thought about it. And I didn't really have that modeled for me in my family. My parents were both very blue collar, very straight laced. Okay. And so it's something that just kind of inherently was part of me.
Is it fair to say that when you were a dentist, you were time poor and money rich?
No, I actually had an amazing coach after my first year of being an owner, and he showed me that what I'd been taught in school was a lie, right? That if you traded time for money and you just took good care of the patients, that everything would be fine. He was like, no. If you stay at peak performance all year long, and he's like, the first 6 weeks back from holidays, you're usually at peak performance, and then it starts to go down. Okay. And so he was like, you're going to work 6 weeks on, and then you're going to take a week off, and then you're going to work 6 weeks and take a week off. And what actually happened was, it was my team who convinced me that we had to do this because they wanted the time off. And I was like, if we don't work, it's not going to work out very well. Mm-hmm. And what happened was we actually doubled our production per hour. So the amount of dentistry we could produce in an hour doubled because we were at peak, and everyone's energy levels were higher. We didn't get sick during the year, was shocking because we were always sick when we were pushing the envelope before. Okay. And so it changed my life, it changed my team's life, it changed our practice, and even how we served our patients at a higher level.
But you told me about 100 hours a week, like that seems a bit heavy. And is that what justified you quitting the profession and starting a new life?
No, as a dentist, when after I had that coach, I was spending max 30 hours a week at the clinic and working 6 weeks on, 1 week off, which is 10 weeks vacation per year. So life was pretty dialed in then. It was after I got injured, which is why I ended up having to get out of dentistry. It wasn't because I wanted to leave dentistry. Okay. My hand doesn't work properly anymore, so I can't drill. So I had to find a way to reinvent myself, which is where the dance company came from, the business coaching company for dentists came from, and Unleashing Influence came from, was really trying to figure out what the heck I was supposed to contribute to the world without a drill in my hand, because I thought I was supposed to be a dentist since I was 2. Yeah. So it took a lot to really try and find, what my niche was. And I really experimented a lot and built brands around all my different talents. And then when I got here and was again looking at my schedule going, this is stupid, I'm in paradise and I'm stuck in my office. That was that turning point for me where I went, okay, I have all these amazing skills that I'm really good at, but they're in very disparate arenas. And so they're confusing to the market. They're sucking the life out of me. So how can I pull these things in so I use the best of everything? And I literally wrote out all my skills on sticky notes and was like, which of these do I really like? And picked my top 3 and figured out how can I use my top 3 to make myself happy and also create the biggest influence I possibly can in the world and help change people's lives.
How did you deal with that change emotionally? Did it take you a couple of days to realize like, oh shit, my life's changing? How did you adapt? Were you always this resilient person?
I think the way my life has gone, I've always had to be resilient, whether I wanted to be or not. Yeah. And just one of those turning points again, where once the rose-colored glasses are shattered, I can't not do something about it. There's lots of people who are like, oh, I know what's really happening, but I can ignore it and keep going in this direction. Once I know something needs to change, I take action very, very quickly to start making changes. So like when I realized that I didn't want to run my full-on agency with Unleashing Influence, within 3 months, I had sold off the agency. Yeah. Same thing with the dental company, same thing with my dance company. So for me, once I know something, it's easy for me to light the match and burn down what's not working. Whereas for a lot of people, they're like, oh, but you spent so much time building this and blood, sweat, and tears. And so why would you let that go? And the fact is, if it's not aligned with where you're trying to go in life, it's pulling you back to somewhere that you don't want to be. And it's just wasting your energy and time.
How's the selling process of a business? Was it forced on you? Did you get the price you wanted?
I made it so it was easy for me to move on. So I, like, even with my dental clinic, when I decided to sell, that was 2015 when the oil crisis happened. In Calgary is where my practice was, oil-based city. The economy was crashing really, really fast. And I was like, I'm going to sell this for half of its value so that I can get out and move on with my life. And everyone thought I was crazy, but Calgary still has not fully recovered from 2015. So it was definitely the right decision. And my intuition was telling me, do what it takes to get out. And with where my physical state was, where my thought process was when I moved to Nicaragua as well, I was so pulled in so many different directions, like something has to give. And I know if I let this part go, I'm going to skyrocket because I'm going to be free from these things that are holding me back. And it's interesting, 3 months after I divested everything, my production in Unleashing Influence had tripled what it had ever been by 3 months after releasing that stuff. So it's hard to let go of those things because you're like, oh, but what if I'm making a mistake? But if you trust your intuition tells you everything. If you're having that ick feeling of, if I stay with this, yeah, it makes sense logically, but my body is telling me different, follow what your body's telling you because it knows something that your head doesn't.
Interesting. How's the digital nomad been for you, and do you recommend it to other people? How's Nicaragua?
Sometimes the internet is funky.
Mhm.
When Facebook went down last year, our internet went down because a lot of foreign internet is actually based on Facebook. So that
Really?
was a wake up call.
My
But
God.
if you can find that stable internet, sometimes you have to pay extra for it. Like I've moved to a co-working space. I live in the jungle, and in the jungle, the internet can't get through the jungle very well. So I had to make the sacrifice that I come into town and work in a co-working space. But if you're in a population that has a few expats, usually something very stable has been set up. And one of my biggest recommendations, if you're going to be a digital nomad, you still have to keep structure in your day, because it's really easy to be like, oh, I'm just going to go surfing, or I'm just going to go on a day trip, and then you abandon your company. And I see people do that, and then they're wondering why they're stressed out all the time. The structure of having a schedule allows you to have the freedom in your off hours. But if you're helter-skelter during your working time, it tends to actually set you up for disaster, and then you may be living in a place that's less expensive, and so you acclimatize yourself and you can justify, oh, but I don't need to make as much money. But the thing is, if you move back to your country, or if you move to a more expensive country, you still have to have that constant income. So I don't suggest trying to like dumb down your expectations of what you want to make based on the country that you're living in. Set those expectations that you're making it no matter what country you're living in.
Have you done some spiritual work in the jungle?
A tremendous amount, actually. That's one of the interesting things about being in Nicaragua is there's this island called Ometepe, which has 2 volcanoes in it, and it's a very wonky place to live because the energy goes up and down. There's a whole bunch of spiritual practitioners out there, so anything that you want to access, whether it's Reiki, whether it's breath work, whether it's ayahuasca, spiritual connection, there's all these different practitioners that you can access, which you wouldn't necessarily be able to easily find in North America because it's a bit taboo. But down here, people are very open about what they're doing. So you can go and access pretty much any kind of spiritual work that you want to, and it's not going to cost you thousands of dollars. It's more in the $100 mark.
Apart from the, let's say, I won't call them like one-time spiritual work, but let's say asymmetric spiritual work that I did in the past year, that you probably did too, aka three-day dark room meditation, vipassana, ayahuasca, name it. What are you doing on a daily basis to work on yourself, to give you energy, to give you spiritual stability and abundance?
I actually joined Mind Valley, which is a really amazing platform. There's so many different methodologies that you can access on it, and I'm kind of a learning junkie, so once I get into something, it's really hard for me to hit the stop button. So I'm spending at least an hour a day listening to different methodologies, and I usually listen to them on double speed so I can get through a lot of information quickly and be able to integrate that in my life. So that has become something that's become very essential in really finding out why I came down here and why I need the change that I was seeking, because I came down here knowing that, but I didn't have a path to actually create the change that I wanted. I just knew things in my life were broken.
And do you feel that you've healed since then? And second question, would you feel ready to come back to the Calgary type of environment?
I feel like I've healed. I don't know that I'm coming back to Canada because having discovered how simple life is down here, and with the injury that I had, I'm in a lot of pain all the time, and being in the ups and downs of the cold in Calgary really makes it so much worse. So down here, actually, I've had severe reduction of my pain, which has made me reduce stress because people are just kind of in island life down here. They're a little bit more casual about things. So I have the ability to step out of my intense entrepreneurial mode and step into a more relaxed mode when the day is done, which has been very helpful. So yeah, I don't know where I'm going to end up permanently, but I don't know that Canada or Calgary will be the next place.
Yeah, I mean, I've been back in Montreal since 3 to 4 weeks. I think last time we spoke, maybe I was even in Mexico, and I can tell you also the stress levels here are just higher. Ironically, people are richer, but they're so much more time poor and stressed out, and that's never really cool. There's so much more rules here, which suck. who likes rules, you know, especially for intelligent individuals, rules are pretty much insults most of the time. So yeah, it's quite different. And I'm curious, for chronic pain, do you have any recommendations how to deal with it? Is there any stuff that we can do, for example, to reduce that, for example, breath work? Or
Honestly, for me, anything that calms my nervous system down is helpful. So breath work
okay.
is helpful, meditation is helpful, making sure that I get out and get my physical activity so that the stress of what's circling in my brain gets out, because I tend to problem solve a lot when I'm working out. All that kind of stuff contributes to just having that calmer system, which I think contributes heavily. Plus, I think the warmth makes a big difference in pain levels as well.
And I have a lot of in common, learning junkies, and you know, times to listening and workouts to solve problems. Showers are good also, like hot and cold showers. These are good to create inspiration. Let's talk a bit more about unleashing influence. So tell me about like what you do. You told me last time. I love the high ticket aspect of the business. Tell us a bit more about that business.
So how I work with clients is actually through a 90-day mastermind. So before they actually jump into the mastermind, I do what we call a crack you open branding session. So I take a look at your soul, I take a look at how the world perceives you, and figure out the congruency in your brand. So that will filter out into your content, into your LinkedIn profile, into how you present on podcasts, the stage, even how you talk to your clients. Then once you join the 90-day program, you're learning how to be a thought leader.
That's interesting. Where did you get the 90 days ideas? Like, why 90 days? We hear that from a lot of programs. Is that the time it takes for an impact? Who guided you towards that path?
So I have participated in lots of other people's high ticket programs,
Yeah.
And a lot of them are 90 days, because in 90 days, you can fully commit yourself to achieving something.
Okay.
If it goes beyond, if someone's like, oh, you're gonna have to give me 6 months of your life, they're like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. But 90 days seems to be that magic point. And what happens during that 90 days is you are doing a lot of things, but by the end of it, you already have a result that you can run with. And then with my program, once you're done that, you can join what we call the Badass Entrepreneurs Club, which is a monthly twice check-in where you're getting sales training, you're getting elevation of how to continue to leverage your personal brand. So you're not just kicked out of this world with no help after. You can actually continue to join with that. But those 90 days are those intensive 3 months where you really have to dedicate to your craft.
Huh. Interesting. So yeah, twice a month. And how does that compare on the pricing level compared to the 90 days, which were 20K, you told me back in the days?
Yeah, so the mastermind, once you're through the 90 days and you're into the maintenance program,
Yeah.
your investment is $1,000 per month. And then if you want one-on-one coaching on the side, you can do that as well. But I bring in sales trainers, I bring in lots of interesting people as well.
Nice.
Who add to the knowledge base. So it's not just my brain that you're getting, you're also getting other people.
That seems like a nice little machine to handle. Do you have an assistant to help you keep track of that? Do you have systems? How do you stay organized with all of that?
So I do have a virtual assistant.
Yeah.
His name is Bios. He's in Greece and he controls my life. He is a godsend. So he helps with anything that has to be manually done. But then I have everything that I teach is what I use myself. So I have a CRM that also has a website built into it. My education platform is built into it. And when people join the mastermind, they get access to my snapshots. They can see everything that I'm doing. They can see all the scripts that I use, so they can just take that and customize it to what they actually need. And so everything is controlled either by Bios or through the systems that we built. And I've tried to make it for myself as hands-off as I possibly can. So it's like, we know once we plunk someone into the system, all these things are going to shake out. So we're not worried that things are going to break, because what I was doing before, which is what most entrepreneurs do, especially if they come from a professional background, is they're getting these phone calls and then people keep falling out of their vision because they aren't tracking them properly. And they're like, oh my gosh, I spoke to this person a year ago and I was supposed to follow up with them and I didn't. And so there's a lot of stress in your brain and a lot of chaos when you don't have a system that is doing that tracking for you. So learning what a CRM was, honestly, was a revelation. My first business coach outside of dentistry every time you said that word, I was like, what is a CRM again? Because we had practice management software in industry, but client relationship management software is just as important in the real world.
Yeah, I think it's with you that we spoke last time about you sending ebook follow-ups with your people. To me, following up is my newsletter, shared like good advice every 2 to 3 days, basically with my audience. So what type of follow-ups do you send? Because I always advise my clients against following up for the sake of following up, right? Hey, I exist and give me your money, you know, pay for my service. So what type of follow-ups do you advise?
I always recommend tips and tricks because the people that I'm working with are developing their thought leadership. So if you're giving people free things that they can do to help themselves, that is huge value. So it's not buy from me, buy from me, buy from me. It's like, okay, here's what you can do to help yourself. If you're stuck with it, let's hop on a call. So it's a very soft sell, but you're developing a lot of trust. And depending on where you are in the pipeline, if you're cold versus warm versus hot, the follow-up is going to be different. It's going to be customized to where you are in the journey. And it will get more and more personalized depending on how hot you are in the pipeline. So we make sure that we're actually getting people what they need. And, some people, they come and they're not going to be ready for a year. I'm not going to cut them off. I want them to be seeing information that they can still start moving forward for themselves and start trying to build it themselves, because I don't want them sitting there doing nothing with their personal brand for a year and then they come to me and nothing has progressed in a year. That is a nightmare to me. So I want them taking these little actions that they possibly can for themselves, give them some resources. Here's a great book to read, here's a great website to check out, and start actually developing themselves until they're ready to actually hop in and fully commit to that 90-day program, because you have to be ready for it. If you're not financially ready, if you're not mentally ready, if you don't have the time to put into it, you're going to fail in the 90-day program. And that is not what I want. I want success for everyone. And I'm going to give you everything that I possibly can to make sure that you are successful.
Do you still have coaches / masterminds?
Do I still have coaches / masterminds?
Yeah. Do you still have coaches coaching you? And do you have mastermind groups?
I do. Yes. So
how many and
what
on what level? Yeah.
So I have 2 different coaches that I work with.
Okay.
And then I have a mastermind that is with other people who are doing the kind of high level work that I'm doing. And we have other trainers that come in and work with us as well. So we have the ability to collaborate and share knowledge while also bringing in that outside inspiration. And then I have my coaches that work with me one-on-one with what I need to work on, whether it's mindset, whether it's sales, whether it's looking at my business and being honest about what is actually happening in and what we actually need to fix. So I like having those outside perspectives because I can only see what I can see. And I know I have blind spots that sometimes I just want to procrastinate and not deal with them. So they call me out on what I'm leaving on the table and what I actually need to get done.
Yeah. Angela, I know we're going over time here, so we're going to end it there. I know you're busy, very successful. Thank you for the interview. It was super interesting. Lots to learn from you. Where can people find out more about you?
So the best place is probably to go to my LinkedIn. It's Dr. Angela Murlooney. And I have a group called the Unleashing Influence Community, which you'll get content at a higher rate than you do just on my personal. And there's a lot of great people in there who are on their journey of building their personal brands. So there's some amazing people to connect with in there as well.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
My pleasure.
Bye.